and welcome to the Mss Francois Show, where we have candid conversations and a variety of entertainment, and where I use humor to help you deal with your dysfunctional relationship. Yes, you! We are in season 5, our series finale. We're basically ending it on this year. Don't feel sad. And for those of you who feel sad, guess what? I have a wonderful guest that's gonna bring some laugh, bring some fun, and give you some great information. Her name is Staci Bartley. If I pronounce that wrong, whatever. So she's an integrated couple therapist and mediator. She has a CHT in hypnotherapy. We have no idea what that means, but I'm sure we'll find out along the way. She has certification in sex therapy. All I heard was sex. And she hosts the Love Shack, which is a podcast. But my favorite, and with some of the things we're going to be discussing today, is she's an author of Feeling Like Your Marriage is Dead, a divorce mediator's guide to a lifetime of love. Now, after that long intro, right? But tell me how she found time to have 8 kids and 13 grandchildren and on her third marriage, I believe. 12 years, poor guy. Hi, Staci.
I love it. That's awesome. I know he is a poor bastard. Poor bastard. He adopted like 6 kids, only had 2 of his own. A cow dog that's like drooly and messy and tumoury, and then, you know, I can't even tell you the financial number, but I keep reminding him, Mss Francois, I'm worth it.
I hope you didn't lead with all those things when you first met him.
No, we start to get to know, we were getting to know each other. I had a young boy at home and I says, is that a deal killer? And he goes, well, it wasn't on my match.com profile, but no, okay, I'll call you tomorrow.
Well, obviously something is working.
Dodged the bullet. We had a lot of those kind of conversations, right? Well, it wasn't really necessarily on my profile, but you're okay. I'll overlook that one. And I kept going, okay.
Well, you obviously tied him up because you have him for 12 years now, so you did something right.
I got him. I absolutely got him. And now, you know, there's days where I say, remember, you're not the only one who gets to choose here. You know, you better be on your best behavior.
Exactly.
Today looks good. We'll let tomorrow take care of itself.
Oh God. One of the reasons I definitely said I wanted to have you on the show is not because of your amazing personality, because it's okay, but it's because your book. I love the title and I read it, as you know, but the first question I wanted to ask is why that title?
Because we have conversations inside of our head that say, I feel like my marriage is dead. What do I do if my marriage is dead? And it conjures up this idea of it's over, but we really feel like it's dead. How do we revitalize this thing? And also, upon testing it, we did some market research and testing. You should have seen the chat blow up when you put in marriage is dead. Oh, people lose their minds.
Really?
Like in defense of it, in support of it, right? It's like nobody wants to admit that their marriage is dead. You know, everybody's trying to cover that up. Most of us do live in a land of illusion when it comes to our relationships. And I certainly have a master's in that. Just want you to know. And so, yeah, it just really was sticky. And so we decided to go with it. But we were trying to soften it too, because it was going to be marriage is dead. And because the reason I was going to just title that, which is kind of a punch in the gut, don't you think? What do you think?
But you know, it's so weird. Even though it's a punch in the gut, people do be like, marriage and dead. What the hell is she talking about? So you might, you know, it's more intriguing that have a happy marriage. That's just boring.
Wow. Yeah. And the marriage is dead was, you know, there's so many things and so many elusive stories and things that we've been taught about marriage and how it's supposed to go in relationships overall. I mean, they make us feel good. You know, I call it the Santa Claus story. You know, there's wonderful, beautiful things that inspire us around the holidays about Santa Claus and the spirit of giving, etc. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to rip the Band-Aid off and say there really is no Santa Claus, right? I mean, that happy ending we're all pursuing, but it's not about finding the right person and you being the perfect person and then you just ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after in your
But
happy
that's what
ending.
I see in every Disney movie. So I don't know why you're messing it up for me.
I
But
know. And we sincerely believe that that's what happens, especially if we come from like religious paradigms or a family of origin can say and promise, if you just do these things, then it's going to be great. The relationship is going to be great.
yeah.
And that's not the truth. That's just not the truth. There's a lot more that's required of us. And when you start to study the history of marriage, I don't know about you, but that was
Let
one
me
of my
stop Staci
funnest
for a
parts of the
second
book.
because I see Staci long-winded, right? I wouldn't even get a question out, so I'm gonna be cutting
That's
her
true.
off because it's about 25 minutes into the interview already, right?
Uh,
But with the title, right? One thing, like you mentioned that you did a lot of research. How long did it actually take you to write this book?
4 years. Took
Oh
me 4
yes.
years. Yeah.
Okay, you're
And then
lucky.
another year to muster up the courage to release it. So
Oh, really?
yeah, just
With
because I
all
have a
these
lot of my
fancy
story in
titles
it.
next to your name, I would think you just like, yeah, time to release my book because
Yeah.
it's expected.
Oh, I wish I could say that, you know. I kind of had to morph myself into that person because there's just a lot of my personal story in there, right? And it was like,
Yeah, it was
and when you put
entertaining
words
too.
on paper, it's hard to take back. You can't go, oh,
True.
I didn't really mean that. I didn't say that. And they're gonna, actually, it's here on page 47. Oh, really?
Like one of the things like I see here, because of your history in relationships, and this is your third marriage, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you said at one point you were like, F men, I will never marry again. So with that saying, how were you feeling in that moment and what changed for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had gone through 2 marriages at the time, and I had really felt like in my previous marriage, I had checked all the boxes and done it by the book. And so there was this huge like reality shock of, oh my gosh, I did it by the book and it still didn't work. So what does that mean about me? And quite honestly, at this point in time, I got really pissed. I got really, really angry about the whole process, about men in general. And I kind of went through those phases where I was a little off the rails. And I decided that I was going to have my say because I'd been somewhat of a people pleaser. I felt like that was the way to make relationships really good. And so I'd been a good, dutiful wife, according to the book, and a good mom, and according to the book, had lots of my kids. I abided by my religious, tenets, etc. And when that all blew up, I was just mad. I felt like I had been robbed of, the trophy that I felt like I so deserved and had earned. And now I was just hell on wheels for a minute. And as I went through that, screw marriage phase, it was a place where I was now going out and doing what I wanted to do in relationships and seeking out people that I wanted to explore and experience things with. And it wasn't on the
Okay,
premise of
she
doing
sounded like she
anything
was
long
doing a bunch
term.
of dirty things.
I was.
I like how she make everything sound so fancy and beautiful. So she was having mad sex, getting free food, going on dinners, and just having
Uh-huh.
a whole fun time.
Uh-huh. Dragging
Okay.
men home and then throwing them out, not giving them my number, and I realized in the process of that, I just turned into the version of what I was angry about. And
So
that was a
so when
huge
you
wake-up
saw that,
call.
that's when you made the switch or the change happened.
That's when I went, I'm going to just live my life. I'm going to do things for me. I'm going to raise my kids. I'm going to focus on my business, and I'm just going to live my life according to what I feel is true. And I swore off marriage. I didn't really ever think that I was going to do it again. And there was this one guy that I had seen when I was 14 years old that I actually had the opportunity to have a relationship with. And I think if it hadn't been for that 14-year-old experience when I was younger, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
there was anything in my experience that could have stopped me dead in my tracks and caused me to reevaluate my decision about no marriage, no commitment. I'm going to live life on my own terms, raise my kids. I don't need no kind of man. That's kind of where I was at.
I don't need no man.
I don't need one of them. And then, of course, Tom showed up, and I was like, oh, hold on a minute. And then the very first framework that I created around relationships was actually for myself. And it was to help me get over this commitment phobia that I had had, and these terrible stories and narratives that I had about relationships and men and marriage and commitment and all those kinds of things. I had a lot of work to do. So it was when I met him that I really rolled up my sleeves and started thinking, I got to face this, I got to work through this. What is the truth of marriage? How do relationships roll? What does make them last? Because that was the terrifying part. I'd had enough experience to know you could put in all your best stuff and it still may not last. It still may not go the way you want it to.
Very true.
So how do you
Great.
get
Now you
through that?
depressed a few people. But in today's society, what do you think is the definition of marriage?
Well, I think marriage is something that just gives you legal tenets around the marriage. It gives you legal rights, and it's also a great form of governing the finances. But reality is marriage isn't going to give you anything that the marriage doesn't already have, or the relationship doesn't already have as it exists. It's actually a legal entity that gives you certain legal rights and financial stability as a couple. But aside from that, it does nothing for your relationship. And that's kind of like another Debbie Downer, right? That's like, oh.
Yeah, like okay, like there's a paper for legal stuff. Help some with some taxes.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other truth about marriage is the biggest killer of romantic love is obligation. And oftentimes when we get married, that's what snuffs it out, is the obligation piece, right? Now we're obligated to be together. And I didn't ever want that experience either. I had known what it was like for somebody to feel obligated to be with me. And I had felt obligated to be with somebody else. And I knew that that didn't go well in my experience. So I didn't want anybody to be in the relationship with me unless they truly wanted to be there. And that was a constant choosing in, like every day, even if we are married, I want you to choose in every day to be with me, even though we might be going through a tough time choosing and be with me. Right. Then it keeps it good. Right. It keeps us working together collectively. This idea that now we're married, things are just supposed to be fine and I get to check the box. It's a lie. It does not work like that. Relationships do
Right.
not work.
So far, I hope the happy part of marriage is coming soon because
It is.
But like even with like you say in marriage, a lot of people, some people say, I don't want to get married, it's just a piece of paper. So why do you think people are more cohabitating, living together than getting married? And that was part of, I believe, part of your research. And why is that?
It's off the chart right now, actually. We have more single parent families worldwide than we do couples. And that's happened for the first time in history where we've tipped the scale. So it is happening. And I think it's just because of this narrative well, let me just go down a little trip of history. So I grew up in a generation, I think I'm older than you. I'm pretty sure
Oh, definitely. I look like 25, but go ahead. You try to put my
I
age
grew
out
up.
there.
No, sorry. I should be slapped. I grew up in an age where you just stayed together. My parents just stayed together. My grandparents just stayed together. And it was more of a financial arrangement, right? Of keeping society together, families together. And that's a good thing. There's some really good things about that. So I'm not going to shoot bullet holes on that. Other than when we got to my generation, the baby boomers, we were all kind of like, yeah, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're not doing that. If I don't want to be here, I'm not going to be here. Right. And so we were kind of the cusp of like blowing up marriages and embarking on this idea of divorce with kids in tow. But the truth is we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea. We were just kind of like blowing it up as we went. And then we realized that actually that's not necessarily a piece of cake either. Right. That's not necessarily smooth sailing. And these beautiful kids in tow were like getting tossed around, right? There was a lot that was being navigated. There was a lot of emotional trauma that was created there because we didn't know what we were doing. We'd never been here before. And now those same kids are having kids now. And everybody is on the fence and terrified about how do we do this thing called love? Like, I know marriage isn't the answer because it didn't work for my parents. My parents got a divorce and then I was kicked around and I had all these step parents, right? And I don't know what to do, but I'm not doing that marriage thing. So let's just live together and hope this goes well. And so, or we're talking ourselves out of relationships. Like, I don't need that. It's kind of like if you fall in love or you want to cohabitate or co-create with somebody, you got this big, like, stupid sucker tattoo on your forehead, right? Like, that's dumb. Why would you do that? I hear young kids, talk about, well, remember the old adage and the principle that, if you care the most, then you have the least power in the relationship. By the way, that's such a bunch of BS, just so you know. And so there is a lot of pain that we don't know how to deal with. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of lies that we're trying to check boxes for. And there's a lot of drive for perfection. And we don't realize that actually it's messy. It's going to be messy. It always has been messy. And it's not about not making a mess. It's about knowing how to come back around and clean it up. So long story short, we are a hot mess when it comes to relationships.
Okay. So now that I totally forgot the question I asked Staci.
Oh, come on. You said, is it true?
We're just gonna change this to Staci Bartley Show, and I'm just gonna get some water. Let me try to look at some of these questions here, people.
Just
Okay,
move on to the next one. You'll be fine.
one thing was, she might have answered this question in her long rant a few minutes ago, but one of the things, one of your chapter was on the evolution of marriage and how does it hold significance for today's marriage? She somewhat answered it, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I did. We kind of know where we came from. And even before then, right, it was about money. It was about being able to track the finances and the assets. So if you landed a really good men, you know, back in the 17 and 18, 1900s, that was kind of like getting into a great
1900s,
college.
my God.
I know. It wasn't all that long ago.
Oh God. But one of the things I did not know, and I've been talking about this, like I wrote your book, right? Is that the interesting facts was in 1975, a married woman was not allowed to take out a loan and open an account without the written permission of her husband. Now, when I read that, I was like, what? But
I
again, that's a
know.
different generation, and I'm living in this era, and I never had to even think of that. So, of course, when you hear some of these things, you're like, not me, who, you know, but I thought that was amazing. Even this, what I did know, 1967 interracial marriages was finally legal, and many still think it should be an offense to have interracial marriage. And again, people, 1967, 1975, so yeah, 75 is not 200 years ago. That's recently, and that's scary. You know, so thank you for the education, right? But I'm going from those years straight into present time. Well, polyamory forms of relationship are on the rise. Why is that, Miss Staci?
Because we're of the opinion that if I get discontent in my relationship, or I want to keep the spark alive, my libido high, the eroticism high in my relationship, the answer to that, especially if I want to stay in a committed, what we would call relationship with my primary person, then the answer needs to be, we'll just open it up to other people. And that's great. I work with polyamory couples, actually.
Well, you know what? To remind some people what polyamory is, because some people's like, huh?
Polyamory is a collective group of people that usually come in pods of like 4 or more. And there's an agreement between those pods that we're going to have sex with each other, but only with each other. And so I have a primary relationship, which is usually my first relationship. And then we have this collective, we call them boyfriends or girlfriends, and we go on dates with them. We can have sex with them. And the conversation needs to be very, very open and honest, obviously, for it to work. It takes a tremendous amount of communication to keep it going. And so tremendous. And I think I have a point there if you want to hear it.
Yes, I'll take the point.
We don't realize in relationships that they multiply very quickly on us anyway. So if you and I were, for example, in a romantic relationship, I would have the relationship with myself I'm navigating, and then I would have the relationship with you. So I'm already dealing with 2. And now I'm going to have to deal with you and your relationship with yourself and your relationship with me. So we have actually 4 different perspectives that we're navigating there. So now we start to add more people. It's not just, you know, adding 2 more relationships. It's not the relationship with that person and the relationship with one person. It's that relationship with the other people that are involved as well. And so very quickly, you can have a lot going on. And that's what makes them sometimes very, very difficult and emotionally draining.
Yes, I think my biggest thing was the emotional part of it and the communication. Sometimes just between, like you see, you, yourself, and then another person, that's a lot of, communication is already hard. So entering 3 other people, ooh, that's a
Well,
fight.
and I don't know about you, but sometimes dealing with myself is just a full-time job.
I know,
right?
when you're having those conversations, right?
Yeah, I don't even have bandwidth for one more, let alone 3 or 5 more. So that's not something that works in my genre, but it is something that people are healing with, people are growing with. And even there, ironically, we have people who like do affairs, emotional affairs, physical affairs, which you think,
Mhm.
what? And there's some reasons behind that we don't need to go into, but polyamory is becoming more and more popular, I think, because of the space and permission that we want to be able to choose. We want to be able to continue to feel like we can develop, we can grow, we can expand, we can meet new people. And then there's the erotic piece, right? There's the erotic piece that we want to keep alive as human beings. I mean, it's where we all come from. That's important to us. If, you know, at least if it's not an active part of our day, we think about it sometimes. And it's important for our health, etc. And so what's erotic to some people is the idea of more. And then we just don't realize that there's pros and cons to both sides, right? I'm not saying one side is better than the other. I'm just saying there's pros and cons and things to be navigated on both sides of the
Yeah,
fence.
I'm
It's
good.
not
That's
always
not for me, but
greener.
thank you. Thank you for your offer, Stacy, but no thank you. One of the things that has in your book, at the end of each chapter, you have something called emotional push-up. Explain that.
Mhm. Well, so emotional weightlifting is what I call it. It's a principle that we teach with all of my individuals and couples. It's the ability to essentially emotionally regulate yourself. And it's hard. It takes effort. It's going to make you sweat. It's going to make your stomach flip over. But it is the thing that helps expand our capabilities as a human being emotionally, right? I like to say, look, if you and I want to keep our sexy bodies in check, right? We can't just sit on the couch and do nothing. There's some resistance training that we're going to have to embark on physically. And we accept that and we know that. What we don't understand is that's true for our emotional bodies as well. And most of our emotional bodies are very unconditioned. They're very lazy. They're very weak. And their capacity can be expanded, but we're going to have to do some resistance training. And that resistance training comes in the form of pushing on fear and insecurity that comes up inside of ourselves. One of the biggest misnomers about relationships and marriage is that when I find my person, then I can exhale, right? Like, I've arrived. Okay, it's just smooth sailing from here. Actually, you know what the reality to that is? The more I care, the more my fears and insecurities come up. The more invested I become, the more I care about how this goes or doesn't go, the more my fear and insecurity pops and flashes. So I always say, if you want to put your personal growth on steroids and you want to expand yourself in ways you can't even imagine right now, then just go ahead and get into a relationship. It will take care of everything.
Oh God, now that you're scaring most of our viewers, they're like, single
Yeah.
is the way to go.
No,
And if
coupling is the way to go to grow, to expand, to become more of who you have the capacity to be. We need relationships,
sure,
and that's why we'll never not desire them. You know, as much as we would like to talk ourselves out of them, we need them. And what I want to just help you understand, and what I am committed to, and what drives me is helping people understand they don't have to be afraid of them. Right? There's skills, there's things to understand, there's things to know, but anything is scary when you're doing it blindly, right?
right, true.
That's terrifying.
So
So
once
don't.
you're basically once you're willing to learn, grow, listen, understand, once you're willing to put the work in, is something you truly want. You put the work in, and it's amazing where it could be able to go, or how you can grow as a person, or both grow at the same time.
100%. And it's amazing that as you both choose in, there's continuous doors of exploration within inside of ourselves and each other in our relationship. And that's the beauty of a mature relationship. If we're growing it intentionally with some skills, it becomes safer over time. And so we can explore deeper aspects of ourselves and intimacy and life, right? That we don't have the safety to explore on the front side, right? When you're first getting to know somebody and you really want them to like you, you're not likely to take a lot of risks, right? You're already taking a risk by sharing teeny tiny pieces of yourself with them.
Right.
But as you get to know that person and yourself more and more and more, and you become safer in that space, there's many more things to discover, right? And so then you start to play a different game, which is how good can we stand it? Like, how good can we allow ourselves to explore and expand and express? And I'm not suggesting to you that my relationship doesn't have challenges. That would be a lie. And I don't want to sell that out there. But we work at it every day. and we
Like you
work at
said,
it with
every
some
day you
skill.
choose in. Like, how do you
Yes.
even come up with that? Every day you have to choose in. Is that something you get up and you say to Tom? I'm choosing you today.
Some days I do. Some days I want to choose out today, but I'm choosing in because I love you. Damn it. And we can have honest conversations like that,
Yeah.
right? That's the freedom in it, right? And it's okay if he says that to me.
Good. I like that. And even with this, the emotional push-up part of it, you mentioned journaling and journaling tips. And why do you think journaling is so important, especially with marriages and just life in general?
Because journaling helps us understand ourselves. And if your eyeballs are rolling right now because of the word journaling, right?
Like,
To
I
you,
ain't
that
got
special
time.
person out there, yeah, that's like, oh,
I'm
please.
busy.
I'm
What I'm
so
gonna write
sick.
about?
Yeah, I'm so sick of people telling me I got a journal. How about this idea? Don't journal. Don't put it into sentences. Just check in with yourself and bullet point it. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? It's more of a practice of checking in with yourself than it is about anything you're putting on the page. And the thing about journaling is when I put pen to paper, it actually slows my brain down so that I can focus. Until that point in time, the emotions and the thoughts are just tumbling. Like, have you ever thought or noticed that you obsessively think or worry and you can't
Yeah,
stop it and it just keeps
yeah.
going around and around in a circle? If you were to write that on a page, it would stop and you could start looking at it from different perspectives. So there's a beauty in the journaling. And I'm one of those that go, oh, please don't. It was a requirement when I was growing up as a kid that you had to journal, that was the right religious thing to do. And so maybe like many of your listeners, I have an association to it. But I tell you what, since I just check in with myself, utilizing it to make clear my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, what hurts, what I want to do, what I want to strategize, make those to-do lists, it just stops the obsessive thinking. And that's the greatest beauty of it.
Awesome. Well, with that said, tell people where they could connect with Staci Bartley. Tell them where they could definitely get the book. Marriage is Dead. Okay.
Yay! Woohoo! The easiest place is to go to my website. You can learn more about me and the book and the work that I do, probably more than you ever wanted to know. And that's just at stacibartley.com. And it doesn't even matter now if you spell my name right. It'll take you to the same place. You can also check out the podcast on that page too, but I know you'll remember this one. Love Shack Live is the name of the podcast, like the B-52 song. So if you can't remember my name or don't want to figure out how to spell it correctly, then just go ahead and Google Love Shack Live. You'll find me. I'll pop right up. And the book.
And I am so nice. I'm making it even easier. I'm definitely going to put it at the bottom so you all guys could actually spell her name right. But definitely check Miss Staci Bartley out. So thank you so much, Staci. For all those viewers, I just want to remind you, when you want to check me out, it's www.miss, that's MSS for multi-talented and super sexy, Francois. Check out my website. You will catch me on all, and I do mean all social media. Because, I mean, who wouldn't want to look at this all day? So thank you so much, Staci, for joining us. Reminding us that marriage is not necessarily dead, and it's definitely something we can work on, and there are tools and different things that we can use to revive our marriage. So have an awesome evening, Staci. Wave to the people, girl.
Woo!
Season 5.
Bye-bye.